Okay folks, welcome back to the channel and the next part of the Rubicon truck build. So in the last part we were working on the base, getting some initial groundworks on, getting a coat of primer on it, marking out where the track is going to be, etc. So now it's time, really, we need to start adding some foliage and creating that sort of jungle dense terrain. And this is where the base comes to life, really. So we're going to use a selection of products to do this. So I'll move that out of the way. So what we're going to use is all this stuff. So all of this is bought from sort of Amazon, eBay, scale model shops. So what we have, this stuff here. So these sort of paper plants, these are from a company called modelscene.com, but you can order these through Scale Model Shop. They come in various scales, so that's 1 to 1/20th, 1/48 to 1/72. This one is again 1/48 scale, and 1/32 to 1/35 scale, but they're various sizes, as you can see, and they're laser cut on this green paper. So what you do is use a sharp blade, cut out the leaves and all that sort of stuff, construct the plants with sort of CA glue or PVA glue, and then you can bend them into shape and what have you. These are really fiddly, but they're not difficult, if that makes sense. So we'll be using some of those. Next thing we'll be using is some forest shrub from M54A2, which is a Japanese company. This stuff you can get on eBay, and yeah, it just allows you to, you know, there's lots and lots of different styles. So these are just kind of these sort of tall shrubs. And then I forget which company these are from, but these are also on Amazon. So these are just sort of long bamboo type plants. You can get them in green, but really I'm going to paint them anyway. So, and they kind of come like that, so you can pick the leaves off, etc., and shape it however you want. Just be careful, because when they're in the box, obviously they're compressed, but they're not expensive, and they'll do the trick. So what I've done, and as you can see, the leaves come off. Now don't throw those away, move those over there, because what you'll see that I've done, if I move these out of the way, I've sort of separated some stuff that I'm going to use. So these leaves are great to put on the ground, and you can pick them out with brighter colors or browns or whatever to show dead leaves. So we've got a selection of those leaves. These are static grass tufts. Again, get these off Amazon for a couple of pounds. Use these all the time. So you've got these ones with a bit of color in. You've got normal sort of static grass. These are about 6 mil, I believe. And then you can see in there that I've got these sort of bamboo and some of the forest shrubs as well. And the idea being, once we mix all this together, we'll end up with a jungle type terrain. Now, one product I want to talk about, which you see all the time, let's move those out of the way, is this stuff. So this is lichen. So it's kind of rubberized, fake bushes, etc. This is sort of from, I believe, the origins of it were sort of the model railroad people that would use this to create foliage. Now, I will be using some of this. However, like it is in its natural state that you buy it from the packet, yes, it's green, but it just doesn't look very natural. But with a coat of primer, UMP primer or acrylic primer, and then going in and painting it and sprinkling static grass on it and all that stuff, it looks so much better. So you'll see that in the video as well. But as it is, I really don't like it. I think it looks artificial. It doesn't look real. But for the basis of creating shrubs and bushes and all that stuff, it can be used. But I would always paint it. I would never use it as is, because it just doesn't look right. Yeah, so that's it. So the idea with the base, and I think Johnny commented on the last video, because we want to try and create the impression of sort of thick, dense jungle terrain. So what we're going to do is this bit of the front here, sort of a couple of inches tall, and then maybe a bit taller this side, sort of double the height, 4 inches. That allows visibility of the model itself, but gives the idea of this track going through the sort of center of this jungle terrain. And then in here we use a little bit of resin, which I'll show you later on, and getting this sort of water effect here, this ditch or stream or whatever you want to call it. The color for the track that we were talking about in the last video, I'm going to go sort of a light to mid dirt tone. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that using the airbrush and using UMP washes and that sort of stuff to try and create this. I'm not going to go for the red rusty tone, which wasn't all over Vietnam. So that's what we'll do, and we'll try and create this track effect. So without further ado, I think we need to get cracking. I'll head over to the spray booth, start getting some color on this, and gluing bits and bobs on. Yeah, so I'll see you in a minute. Okay folks, so what I've done is I've used the airbrush and I've started to add some colour to the base. So the colours we've used, so initially on this sort of dirt track, used XF52 flat earth, thinned about 60-40 with UMP thinner. And then for the green areas, we used XF67 NATO green, again thinned with UMP thinner, about 60-40. Dries pretty quickly, so we're starting to get some colour on the base now. So what I need to do now is a lot of these, if I get this pointy stick, a lot of these sort of smaller stones and everything, I want to kind of pick those out to add some variation around the green areas. So the two colors I'm going to use for that are Vallejo model color. So we're going to use middle stone, which is 882, and we're going to use khaki, which is 988. And the idea being that we just create some variation before we then go in and start adding foliage and stuff. On the subject of foliage, what I've done as well, while I was spraying the green areas, is I've sprayed very lightly and kind of from an angle sort of upwards, so we still get some of that original brown coming through. I've sprayed some NATO green on these bits as well. What we'll probably do as we're picking out these sort of stones and what have you, is maybe pick out some of the leaves here in different green tones really, or browns, just to give it some real variation. So model colour is an acrylic. It's a great acrylic for brush painting. I've never had much success spraying it. Even when I've thinned it within an inch of its life, I've never had much success. So we're just going to decant a little bit into this palette. It's a metal palette, but I always cover it with foil, keeps the palette nice and clean. Screw the foil up, throw it away once you're done. So we just decant it, and then we just thin it really with just normal sort of tap water. So I'm using a size 1 brush, and essentially we just give it a good shake, decant a little bit into our palette, a little bit of water, about 50-50 I suppose, and we just mix it up till we've got a nice thin paint. So as you can see there, take the excess off the brush, and that's what we're after. And then we're just going to randomly, which is easier said than done, because the human brain will automatically try and create patterns. It's, I guess, the logical part of what we do when we're thinking on a daily basis. So trying to keep things random is more difficult than you think. So yeah, that's all we're going to do, is essentially pick out random rocks, etc., in different colours, these 2 colours, and try and create some variation to what we're doing. So I'll carry on with this, and then I'll come back and we'll see what it looks like once we're done. Okay, so we've attached all the kind of foliage around the base. The truck's on there at the minute just for placement really and where things are going to go. So what we've got left to do, let's move the truck out of the way. There. So you can see the base. What we also did through the airbrush is we put some UMP light dirt wash through the airbrush all over where the kind of track is. Gives it a nice sort of base effect. We need to add some pigments, I think, to the road surface, etc. Bit of greenery, bit of darker, etc., etc. But the foliage itself is done. The paper plants are done. They're stuck on with CA glue. These kind of bamboos, the way you do that, or the way I do it, so just use a pin vise, place a hole, then use normal sort of toothpick, cocktail stick, make the hole more definite, a little bit of CA glue, and then place them in. And what we're trying to do is just create as much variation and randomness as we can. I think we're getting there. So the pigments we're going to use UMP pigments. So the first one I'm going to use is Sandy Earth. Then I'm going to use Earth. Then I'm going to use, moving them out of the way, prepared as ever, Luke. So then I'm going to use one called Dirt. And then Moss, which is this bright green colour. And we're just going to gently blend these in on the road surface, or the track I should say. So to do that, I'm just going to use a cheap flathead brush. I think this one is, Tallery size 10. So the first one we're going to go in with, we'll go from dark to light. So let's go with Dirt first of all. So UMP pigments are really good quality, really sort of fine and highly refined really. So we'll start in the middle, and as you can see we're just blending and brushing this into place all over. And what happens is, because we've got this texture that we put on right at the beginning with this sort of chinchilla dust, it gives the pigment something to kind of bind to, which really helps at this stage. So we don't want to change the colour completely, we want to blend it in basically, like so. And we'll go all over the road surface, and it just gives it a more natural look. And then what we can do right at the end is we can use the same pigments just on the wheels, etc. of the vehicle, so it looks at home then, because it's the same pigments, the same colours, etc., etc. So we just all over the road surface, right up to the edges. Doesn't need to be perfect, we're not trying to be precise really. As I say, no straight lines in nature. And that's what we're trying to do, is recreate a natural environment really. Now pigment's one of those things, you can use pigment binder, etc. You can use UMP airbrush thinner in very small quantities to bind the pigments to the vehicle or the surface that you're putting them on. But even so, pigments by their very nature will come off, but we're not going to be handling this really. And if we're moving it around, we're going to move it by the sides of the base, so it's not a major concern. Earth next, which is the sort of lighter version, and we're just building it up from dark to light. So that's got a nice reddy brown texture, although we're not going completely for the reddy brown soil that you see a lot of Vietnam dioramas will do. But as I said, not all of Vietnam was like that. Some of it was this more sort of lighter earth tone, or is, it still is. Pigments can be quite messy, so that's why I've got the paper down on the mat, so we don't want to stain the cutting mat if we can help it. And each time we apply a different shade, we're just using less pigment as we apply the different shades and tones, like so. If you apply a clear coat on top of the pigments, you're very, very likely to change their effect, and that's just something that happens, any sort of moisture, etc. So this is sandy earth, so here more on the actual tracks themselves, where the earth's been sort of turned over by the wheels of the vehicles passing through it. We don't want big clumps of pigment sort of sticking around. We want the colour. That's what we're after. There we go. Exactly what the effect we're looking for, really. There we go, that'll do us. And then last but not least will be the moss. So we're trying to just create areas of greenery coming through, particularly down the centre and at the edges, and just that jungle kind of look. But as you can see, this is a very bright green, so less is more with this, really. We don't want it fluorescent. And it will blend in, all the pigments blend together and tone down that bright green effect. And there we go, we're kind of looking like we want to look, really. So this is very, very dusty at the minute, so we are going to have to add some sort of fixer to it, but that's okay. Oh, the static grass has come off there, that's not a problem, get rid of that. We'll put it back on, a little bit of CA glue will deal with that, no problem at all. Just kind of blending all these colours together. And if the good thing about pigments at this stage, if you don't like the effect, you just brush them away, really. It doesn't really matter. You know, it's not paint, so we can adjust it as we go before we put any fixer on it or anything like that. Good to do this stage before you do any sort of water effects or resin, because by its very nature being dusty and quite difficult sometimes to manage and control, you don't want to get the pigment over the surface of the water effects that you add. So yeah, just be careful. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use this stuff, which is UMP airbrush thinner. So we give it a bit of a shake, but we want very, very sparing amount, really. So using a pipette into the bottle, and we want very little. So start in the middle, where, you know, it's not going to be obvious. So if it doesn't work, and it will work, I've done this loads of times, but if it doesn't kind of give you the effect you're after, particularly if it's your first time, then you haven't really lost anything, because it's covered, you know. Like so. And what will happen is, as this thinner evaporates, it will leave us with a dry surface, and hopefully we'll get those shades and that effect coming through. We don't have to brush it on, we don't have to touch the surface because we're using the pipette, so we won't move any of the pigments around at all. So that's it, guys. I need to let that dry now because it looks awful at the minute. Looks like a river. But I promise you, as that evaporates and dries off, then we'll see the effect that we're after. So I'll come back once that's evaporated off, a couple of hours, and we'll start to see those shades, etc., coming through. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, folks, so here we are. So we're pretty much there. So the thinner has evaporated away from the surface of the track, which has bound the pigments in place, which is what we're after. And we've got this sort of nice tonal variation now with the pigments. We've added some epoxy resin into there, 2-part resin, about 25 mil in total, just to give us this water effect in the ditch. And then all I've done around the sides is just use some UMP black primer and sprayed the sides black, and we're pretty much there with the base. Very simple. Hopefully it's achieved, or certainly given you some food for thought in how to do things, or how I do things rather. So if we put the truck on itself, and the way we're going to line this up is just make sure the rear wheels are over the kind of, not over the middle of the track. And then what we're trying to do is just avoid any overlap on the base, like so. And that's pretty much it. We're in the right position there. And it kind of achieves, although we've tried to replicate sort of this dense jungle terrain, we haven't obscured the model itself. So hopefully it's, you know, you like it, I like it. I think it's done exactly what I set out to do. Let me know in the comments if you've picked any tips and tricks up, if you know any tips and tricks that I could learn from. That's what it's all about. And there we go. So it's pretty much done. Trying to show you this sort of on a moving video is quite difficult, really, some of the detail and stuff. So I'll leave you with some still images at the end of the finished thing. But like anything, nothing really compares to seeing it in person. This will be going to the Rubicon SIG at some point when I run into them at a show this year, along with the Overwatch Australian Centurion. And there'll be lots more Rubicon stuff coming on the channel for sure. So I'll leave you with some, as I say, some still images so you can see the detail, etc. What I would ask you to do, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, so that really helps the channel grow. And if you like the video, hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the don't like button, and leave a comment and let me know what you think. So until next time, guys, stay safe, happy hobbying, bye bye.